It's Tuesday, May 23rd, and this is now on HNN.
This is something that we live with not even just every day, every second.
The town of Uvalde, Texas is still grieving as this week marks 1 year since a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers, and families are still waiting for answers.
I know she was sorry for what she did.
A plea deal offers closure for the family of a teen killed in a 2016 hit and run.
Maui police are investigating after a man is shot multiple times with a pepper ball launcher.
We have a C-130 aircraft stage with gear, equipment, supplies.
These stories, plus we'll hear how the Coast Guard is preparing to support response efforts in Guam as a monster typhoon barrels toward the U.S. territory. Details coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon and thank you for watching This Is Now. This just in, new at noon, a man found guilty of threatening to kill a DLNR official and his family has been sentenced in federal court. Moments ago, we learned 44-year-old Lindsay Kinney was sentenced to 37 months for each of the 2 counts, which with the terms to run concurrently. Now, he's also been sentenced to 3 years of supervised release. Authorities say Kinney made the threats via Instagram after his boat was impounded, and he was arrested by the FBI last year and was found guilty by a jury earlier this year. Now, Kinney is also a key witness in the case against accused crime boss Mike Miskey after allegedly turning down Miskey's request to kill Jonathan Frazier back in 2016. Then months later, Frazier vanished. Of course, we'll have much more on this story online and on later editions of Hawaii News Now.
We also want to turn now to a heartbreaking anniversary. Tomorrow marks 1 year since an 18-year-old gunman murdered 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas.
Yeah, and the victims' families are still waiting for answers and accountability. Wendy Woolfolk shows us how the community is coping a year later.
This memorial in the town plaza is still a place where people come to gather and to remember. Meantime, victims' families still vow to fight to find change and answers.
Lord, our hearts are still broken. We are still grieving.
Prayers for the overwhelming pain that is still so raw in Uvalde almost 1 year later.
You know, this is something that we live with not even just every day, every second. You know, and just imagine everything you love getting ripped from you.
After 12 agonizing months, no answers and no accountability for the families of 19 students and 2 teachers who were massacred by an 18-year-old with an assault weapon inside Robb Elementary.
Everybody that was there that day has to be held accountable. Every agency that was there. And this is my opinion. It's been a bunch of BS.
Some families turning their anguish into action, urging state lawmakers to raise the legal age to purchase an assault rifle from 18 to 21.
You see, if the age limit would have been 21, my daughter, 18 of her friends, and 2 of her teachers would still be alive today.
But that bill didn't make it to the House floor, deepening their frustrations and adding to their unimaginable grief.
There's no moving on. I'm stuck on that day, and I will forever be stuck on that day.
May 24th, 2022, a day that changed this small town forever. Wendy Woolfolk, NBC News, Uvalde.
Maisha Armitage, the woman who struck and killed Kaulana Werner in a hit and run in Nanakuli in 2016, will not serve any additional jail time. She changed her plea to guilty as part of a plea deal to accept charges of negligent homicide and an accident involving death or serious bodily injury. In return, she got an 18-month sentence and credit for time served, which covers the sentence. She also received 5 years of probation and is banned from driving and drinking alcohol during that time. Kaulana Werner's father, Ed, embraced Armitage at yesterday's hearing.
I just went to approach her, and she kind of met me while I was approaching her, and I just grabbed her and we cried. And the feeling that I got what she was, it was deep down that, I know she was sorry for what she did.
In the years following his son's death, Ed Werner has been a mainstay at sign waving and awareness events to highlight the dangers of drinking and driving. He also spearheaded Kaulana's Law, which extends the maximum sentence for hit-and-run drivers.
Looking ahead, trial is now set for mid-July in a love triangle that turned into an alleged murder. Eric Thompson is accused of shooting and killing his wife's reported lover, John Tokuhara, in January of 2022. Thompson was last reported to be on house arrest. So far, he has pled not guilty.
HNN investigates an alarming uptick in attempted suicides here on Oahu. Officials confirm Honolulu EMS is now responding to between 10 and 15 calls a day.
As investigative reporter Allison Blair explains, youth and young adults appear to be those who seem most at risk.
It's a trend the Prevent Suicide Hawaii Task Force is taking very seriously. Officials there say locally, young people are most likely to try and commit suicide, specifically between the ages of 10 and 24.
Over the past 3 months, Honolulu EMS has reported a dramatic uptick in calls for self-harm and suicide attempts.
Pre-pandemic, we might go on a couple calls a day where people have tried to hurt themselves or intentionally overdosed. And now, like I said, it's 10, sometimes 15 a day.
In the 20 minutes it took to do this interview last Monday, ambulances were dispatched to 2 different attempted suicides, a man and a young woman. EMS Chief Jim Ireland confirms both tried to overdose on drugs. He says in addition to attempted suicides, the number of people who've taken their own lives is also on the rise.
And not just taking pills or overdoses, but also people trying to hurt themselves in other ways, traumatic injuries, including the use of firearms, knives, and other trauma. It's increasing and it's concerning.
According to officials from the Prevent Suicide Hawaii Task Force, adolescents and young adults are the age groups most likely to try and hurt themselves.
It can go 10 all the way up to 24.
The task force leadership committee member says often the reason stems from a lack of connection.
And whether that's with a significant other or at home with mom or dad or lack thereof, but when they're disconnected or when they're in unhealthy relationships, that really becomes a risk factor for them.
Data from the Department of Health shows over the past 4 years, the number 1 cause of death in Hawaii for people between the ages of 15 and 44 is suicide. During that same time period, officials say 10 children under the age of 14 took their own lives. Experts say it's a problem we should all be talking about.
It's just so important because everything around this issue, mental health, getting treatment, is so stigmatized. The more we shy it away, the more we're feeding into that stigma.
And there's a lot of resources out there.
When EMS responds to an attempted suicide call, medics usually insist the patient go to the hospital.
It's the hope that the hospital's team with their mental health experts can engage the patient and not only get them better from whatever they did to themselves, but also get them in a place where they're not going to do this again.
Another resource that everyone should know about is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Just dial or text 988 and you'll be connected with a trained crisis counselor. They're available to talk 24 hours a day. Allison Blair, Hawaii News Now.
Maui police arrested a Kihei man after he allegedly shot a 64-year-old man with a pepper spray launcher, and it was all caught on camera. John Webby says 42-year-old Bo Hawks was harassing him Saturday morning outside of his business on South Kihei Road. Things turned physical when Webby asked him to leave, and he says that's when Hawks began shooting. Police later arrested Hawks. Webby suffered injuries to his face and body.
I thought it was a real gun when I first saw it, and I said to him, "Oh, you're going to shoot me, huh?" And I said to myself, "Oh, this is my last day on earth."
Hawks is now charged with assault but is free after posting $5,000 bail. Hawks says Webby attacked him and he was defending himself.
Officials have now identified the 19-year-old man who tried to drive through barriers just outside of the White House. HNN Washington News Bureau reporter Jamie Bittner is at Lafayette Park with the charges he'll face and the damage left behind.
you can still see the marks from where this 19-year-old U-Haul driver tried to crash his way through Lafayette Square, just 1 block from the White House. Take a look on the ground at that mark on the curb, and then follow the tire tracks that lead all the way up here to this mound of dirt where he hit these barriers right here and came to a stop. Now he's accused of threatening to kill the president, the vice president, and their family. This is the moment U.S. Park Police and Secret Service say Sai Varseeth Kandula from outside St. Louis tried to drive into Lafayette Park just before 10 o'clock Monday night. Photos from the crash show police discovering a Nazi flag inside that U-Haul. The 19-year-old is also facing additional charges of assault with a dangerous weapon, reckless operation of a motor vehicle, destruction of federal property, and trespassing. One of the things about Washington, D.C. following the 9/11 attacks is that these bollards were installed to stop trucks. Monday night, they worked as intended.
Clearly, the president was here yesterday working at the White House, so of course he was here last night. But I can tell you that he was briefed by both the relevant agencies, if you will, law enforcement agencies who had to deal with the situation, and he's very thankful to them for their quick response on this particular issue.
The White House has been targeted repeatedly. In 2020, a Maryland man was shot by Secret Service after he ran towards an officer and told them he was armed. In Washington, I'm Jamie Bittner.
Florida Governor Republican Ron DeSantis will announce his 2024 presidential campaign Wednesday night on Twitter. A spokesman says the announcement will happen during an online conversation with Twitter owner Elon Musk. Tech entrepreneur David Sachs will moderate the discussion on Twitter Spaces, where anyone can listen and request to ask a question. DeSantis is expected to file the formal paperwork for his candidacy this week and have a kickoff event in his hometown of Dunedin next week.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he and President Joe Biden are nowhere near a crucial debt ceiling deal. That's the word from Republican Study Committee Chairman Kevin Hern after a closed-door meeting on Tuesday. Negotiations continue with McCarthy pushing for spending cuts and the White House pushing a clean bill. According to Kern, McCarthy is letting members go home for Memorial Day weekend if a deal isn't in place by then. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the U.S. could default on its debt as early as next Thursday, but some Republicans disagree with that estimate.
We're hopeful that there's progress. I mean, as I've said many times, February 1st I sat down with the president. 97 days he waited, and it put us in this dilemma. Luckily for us, the House Republican passed the bill. I mean, we got to understand, why are we here? The Democrats spent too much money. We can't afford to continue to spend that much money. And they're working right now in the conference room there. We're trying to make progress.
What I can speak to is this budget negotiation, and what we have been doing, what we have been calling on Congress to do for the past 5 months is to act. And so we're going to continue to have those conversations. We believe they've been productive. We believe there is a space and an opportunity here to have a bipartisan, reasonable budget agreement that, again, the House and the Senate can vote on, and that we can get the business of the American people done.
Some Democrats call the spending cuts Republicans are proposing as draconian. They say extreme members of the GOP are holding McCarthy hostage, but McCarthy says he and Biden at least agree on one point. They need to raise the debt ceiling to avoid a potential economic catastrophe.
New HIV infections are trending down in the United States. That's according to the CDC. A new report shows there were about 32,000 new HIV infections in 2021. That's a 12% drop from 2017. Among gay and bisexual men ages 13 to 24, annual infections were down 34% during those years. The CDC estimates that about 1.2 million people in the U.S. have HIV currently, and about 1 in 8 don't know they have it.
Now to news out of Hawaii Island as there's heightened activity at Kilauea. It's not erupting at this point. U.S. Geological Survey researchers, however, have tracked elevated earthquake rates beneath the summit, including over 100 quakes on Saturday alone. That includes a magnitude 3.7 trembler, which was felt in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and its surrounding communities. Gas emissions do remain low at this time, but it's believed magma is collecting underneath the summit, which could mean an eruption might occur with little or no warning. But again, the volcano is not erupting at this point. Let's go ahead and give you a live look outside. This is the inner Baltimore Harbor. Right now it's a cool 72, 73 degrees just after 6 o'clock, about 6:15 there. And Ash, I know you've been to Baltimore before,
Yeah,
right?
a couple times just for when the Nationals played the Orioles there. It's just a train ride from Washington, D.C., Camden Yards, beautiful baseball stadium.
Oh, sounds
Yeah.
lovely. All I see and I hear is Hairspray. Good morning,
Yes,
Baltimore.
I love that song. Great show.
Let's go ahead and get you over to Guy Hoggy with a look at your island weather.
Now, with the breezy trade-ins, we'll have some passing showers from time to time, but they'll be moving through rather quickly because of the winds. So rainfall buildups won't be very much. And then starting on Thursday, the rain might linger a little bit longer because the winds are going to slow down. Still, though, we're not expecting a washout anytime soon. Although when those winds lighten up, in addition to some windward and Mauka showers, we'll likely see some afternoon pop-up showers every now and then for some islands late in the day, but we're not going to see a washout again anytime soon. So we're in for a long stretch of beautiful, but things will be changing, right? Breezy conditions, nice and comfortable, great air quality, comfortable humidity levels today and tomorrow. And then those things change, maybe slightly more humid, maybe some particulate in the air from Thursday on. And although at this point, the weekend is shaping up to be quite nice.
Thank you so much, Guy. Over in Guam, storm preparations are underway as residents are being advised to evacuate ahead of the impacts from a huge typhoon. Emergency shelters have been filling up throughout the day. The Salvation Army Hawaii and Pacific Islands Division says it's prepared to respond with any assistance that may be needed. The organization is working with Guam Homeland Security and the Office of Civil Defense. The American Red Cross says it's also ready to step up with resources on hand. Casey Lund spoke with the Honolulu Coast Guard about their response.
The United States Coast Guard is responsible for 750 miles of shoreline here in Hawaii, but you've got to understand their area response, 12.2 million square miles, and included in that is Guam, the U.S. territory of Guam, which, as we know, has a real threat coming its way. And I want to talk to Commander Dave Milne from the U.S. Coast Guard a little bit about what you folks are doing to prepare here. There's already people en route over there. We're planning to send more. Can you give us an idea of the response here from Sector Honolulu?
Sure. We're in constant contact with our Coast Guard colleagues down in Guam and finding out, asking them their needs, what they're looking for. We have C-130 aircraft staged with gear, equipment, supplies on board to support our people there. And additionally, we're working with our counterparts, our colleagues in the Federal Emergency Management Association as part of the overall response, as well as our counterparts and colleagues with the Department of Defense to be able to provide whatever's needed after the storm moves through and moves out. Yeah.
The dangerous situation, not only for the people of Guam, but the men and women of the Coast Guard that are heading over there, kind of flying into danger's path. And then I also just want to note, I think sometimes we think of Guam as sort of a neighbor here in the Pacific, which it is, but that neighbor is pretty far away. What's that trip like for your men and women?
Yeah, it's a long trip, and it's important that our folks that are leaving to deploy there pack some creature comforts for the trip, plenty of food and water for the trip on the way down, and when they get there, they don't have time to rest. They're going to be put to work right away. So it's going to be a long 24, 48 hours for our folks responding from here, from Honolulu, down to support our colleagues in Guam.
Very good. Commander Dave Milne with us today to give us a little bit of an idea of what the men and women of the Coast Guard that are stationed here are doing to support those people. We'll have coverage. Stick with Hawaii News Now for the latest on that serious weather situation on the U.S. territory of Guam. For now, we'll send things back to you.
All right, time to see what the internet is talking about. A new rideshare app in Atlanta features armed drivers and an emphasis on passenger security. Black Wolf is the brainchild of Kerry King Brown, a private investigator with experience as a celebrity bodyguard. He says drivers have training in the military, law enforcement, or security. Passengers can even request the driver stick around after a drop-off for added protection. Now, the base price for a Black Wolf ride with an unarmed driver is $50. For an armed driver, it is about $10 more. The app already has about 80,000 downloads.
Well, a terminally ill Texas teenager is able to cross something off of his bucket list, and it's all thanks to the love from his community. Kevin Reese has the story.
Weston Groff is running out of time. His mom explained it bluntly to me a few months ago.
And one doctor told Weston several years ago that he wasn't going to live to his 18th birthday, which is this year.
It's an inherited nerve disorder. Weston was willing to talk about it too.
Miserable some days. Some days it's all right.
So a mom's request,
I just want to make him happy,
was simple. If they could fix up the family's wheelchair-assisted and very rusted white van, they could all go on his bucket list request, a trip to the Grand Canyon. The GoFundMe asked for just a few $1,000. You responded and gave them more than 38. So, after a trip to Mako, a mom had one more surprise for her son. The artist at Laser Wraps in Wiley would make sure his trip to the Grand Canyon would happen in mysterious style. Weston's brother and sister got the honors to make the delivery, complete with the Wiley police and fire escort.
Sandy, it looks so good!
Weston waiting at Wiley High School.
Did you just notice?
The Weston Groff Grand Canyon bound mystery machine arrived.
Oh my goodness, it looks so good.
And next to Scooby-Doo, Weston's service dog Cosmo even gets his own sticker and was the first to jump inside.
Are you just speechless? We're gonna go to the Grand Canyon in style.
The generosity of strangers made it possible to add even a few more stops to the bucket list trip. Six Flags in June, Dollywood in August, and the Grand Canyon in October.
Just to be able to do this for him and make some wishes come true and do the Grand Canyon, and is just above and beyond and blessed. Oh, overwhelmed. It's just beyond words.
Weston, a man of few words sometimes, offered perhaps the biggest praise of all.
Yeah? What do you think of it?
It's cool.
Weston and his family don't know how much time he has left, but he does know that he has people who care for him and love him.
You know how I love
As his bucket list trip begins, there's absolutely no mystery about that.
You got a cool car, man.
In Wiley, I'm Kevin Reese.
Well, what a beautiful story.
Yes,
there.
I love those.
Yeah, all about the kindness of the community coming together.
Yes.
How sweet. Yeah. We also want to end today with some good news, and in fact, let's head on over to Japan.
Okay.
Take a look at this. Sanja Matsuri, a popular traditional early summer festival, is returning to Tokyo. It's, of course, happening for the first time in 4 years due to the COVID pandemic. Remember that thing, 2020? Yeah, we don't talk about her. But this year, the festival returned, and it features portable shrines, which are carried out on the shoulders of participants. Now, the shrines begin their separate trips around the neighborhood of Asakusa in Tokyo early in the morning, and then are carried back to the Asakusa Shrine. Now, the festival is held to honor the three men who are believed to have founded the ancient Buddhist temple Sensoji in the area. I gotta practice my Nihongo, Ashley.
I know. You're gonna go soon. Excited for you.
Tomorrow. I am so excited for that as well.
I know. We're gonna miss you. Anyway, lastly, you guys, Lego is releasing a Pac-Man set based on the 1980s arcade game. So it has more than 2,500 pieces that create kind of a maze, and the company says that the characters can move through it just like Pac-Man did in the original game. This is gonna put you back $270, though. It's coming out June 4th as part of the Icons collection.
Once again, you really need patience to put something like that together, which I do not have.
Yeah.
Patience and a few $100s.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Aloha.